Hello and happy fall, wonderful Moss flutists. This is Veronica Mascaro, flute teacher at Moss Middle School. And today we are talking about the flute lyrical etude for this year, 2021, the Lento and Cantabile by Ernesto Kohler. In fact, both of these etudes are actually written by Ernesto Kohler. Wonderful composer. He was also a flutist as well, and I will get his years for you. He was actually a romantic composer, and like I said, wonderful flute player as well. This Lento and Cantabile is a really, really beautiful work. What you see in front of you is really just a portion of the work, but nonetheless, a good piece of music, a great etude. As I'm sure that you already know, it's a lento and a cantabile. Lento is a very slow and very dark tempo, and cantabile means singing. So it's in a very singing style, meaning that you'll be able to explore some different sorts of vibrato colors in order to shape the phrases and to move the musical lines forward. And all kinds of wonderful things will come from this particular tempo and also stylistic interpretation. Generally, this particular work is in a subdivided time signature. So instead of being in a 4/4, as is stated in the very, very beginning, it's actually an 8/8. And what 8/8 means is 8 beats to the measure, and the eighth note receives 1 beat. So it changes just a little bit. So basically you're taking what you already know, which is the quarter note, and you're actually splitting, or not splitting it in half necessarily, but you're adding another half to each of the rhythmic notations. So for example, an eighth note is going to be equal to 1 beat. A quarter note is equal to 2 beats. A dotted quarter note is equal to 3 beats. While you don't have any half notes in this particular cut, that would be worth 4 beats. 2 16th notes together would be worth 1 beat. 3 16th note triplets would be worth 1 beat. And you have 2 sets of those. You have one in measure 1, measure 5, and then once again in measure 13. 32nd notes. If you have 4 32nd notes in this subdivision, that's also worth 1 beat. You also have 2 more rhythms in this particular work, and that is a 16th note followed by 2 32nd notes. That's also worth 1 beat together. This would be 1 anda, 1 E anda in the 4 32nd notes. And then the last rhythm that you have, which is in the measure 16, my eye pencil's being a little ornery today. So you have a 16th note followed by a dotted 16th note followed by a 32nd note. And that would also be worth 1 full beat together. So if this started on 1, which it does not in this particular measure, this would be 1, which would be comprised of 3 32nd notes, and then the last note is the So like I said, this isn't a subdivision. It makes it a little bit more complex, but the giveaways that tell us that this is subdivided, other than the historic ideas behind Kohler's works, would be the fact that it's a very, very slow tempo. That's the first thing. And the second thing would be then the 32nd notes, and most especially in measure 4, measure 8, and again in measure 16. So I'm going to play this for you. I'm going to keep it at a good healthy 65 for today on my metronome. And like I said, the center to your rhythmic universe is the eighth note. 5, 6, 7. So just a couple of details. I took a couple of extra breath marks just because of the tempo being a little bit slower. I tend to kind of lean towards playing this at 70 to 76 rather than the tempo that's listed here. Basic breath marks in this are basically on dots and on last notes of slurs. I also like taking a little bit of lift at the end of measure 4, moving from the crescendo into the subito piano. Subito means sudden change, and this is definitely a sudden change. It's a sudden change of dynamic. I also take small breath marks after staccatos when needed. Here you have another dotted note, obviously. Last note of the tie. Written breath mark, it's at a good spot because of the pickup notes that you have here. Dolce means sweetly. So you would use maybe just a sweeter tone, just kind of calm down the dynamic a little bit. You're at piano here. Maybe more of a velvety sort of vibrato also tends to help. Sometimes I'll take a breath mark here before we move into the next section. This area right in here is comprised of a lot of pickup notes moving through to that B natural. You have a big decrescendo in here. They have the gradations underneath, but it's basically a decrescendo that moves from mezzo forte into piano. Another printed breath mark here. In this stylistic interpretation, I like using the grace notes on beat 1. They're part of the melodic content, which is why I like using beat 1 in this particular case, because it helps to bring them out a little bit more. Not too fast on the 32nd notes in measure 16. Again, they're part of the melodic content. Breathing before the pickup to 16, and then that's the end of the cut. A couple of other things. These are martelets. Martelet markings are not quite as short as a staccato, not quite as long as a détaché. So they have a basic lift to them. Just helps with kind of a dramatic effect. So you wouldn't really use a tut attack. You could use a 2 attack and just kind of lift a little bit more. And you have 3 sets of those, measure 7, measure 9, and then again in measure 10. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else at this time that would be notable. Don't rush what looks to be shorter or faster notes. Again, this subdivision helps to curb all of that, helps to put all of the notes and all of the content in the right spots, making everything that's on the page part of the melody rather than decoration. You have no trills in this. You have no traditional grace notes per se, just because of 13, 14, and then again in 15, these particular grace notes are just much more, they're appoggiaturas, which means to lean on the notes, but they're much more part of the melodic content. And then the last one. So I would give you a suggestion as you're moving through this to play this as, again, as singing and as sweet as you possibly can. It's a very beautiful piece of music. Of course, as we talked about in the early on in this video, Ernesto Kohler was a very fine flute player, and he would have been working on this music himself for just beautiful timbral qualities and just a very relaxed sort of tone. I think a great word to use in this is the word elegance. It's a very elegant piece of music. So good luck.